Wine Fringe.
Welcome back to Wine Fringe. My name is Jill Smedley, and I'm here with,
Jake Plottinger.
and we have the distinct pleasure of speaking with Rae Wilson, a Texas winemaker, for our episode 11, and we're talking about all things Texas winemaking, and we're talking about Rae's journey and her brand. So Rae, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I came from the hospitality side of things, and I was a sommelier. I then decided to jump into production, and so I moved out to Napa for a while. I worked there for about a year, and then left and went to Portugal, worked in two different regions there for two different wineries, and then after that went to France. So I was in Alsace, and then came back to Austin thinking I'd leave and go do more of that, and then learned that people made wine here. So that was a really interesting thing to find out. At first, though, I didn't really give it a lot of thought. I thought, oh, okay, well, a lot of places make wine, you know. But then I thought, well, that's small-minded. I mean, I think it's too easy for wine professionals to just easily discount a place that's not already established as a well-known name as a wine industry. And so I, kind of just noticed that in myself, like, oh, I should just go and, go taste at a winery. And so I did, and I found some really incredible wines, and then got intrigued enough to one of the winemakers that I talked to on that first trip. Is a big kind of a very persuasive guy, and he was, by the end of that tasting, he's like, well, you need to come here and do a harvest with us. And so I thought, okay, I'll do that. So that was 2011, and then just kept kind of growing with the industry, and then saw a lot of potential. And so I started my own production in 2014 here, and started very small.
And you've not gone back at all. Like you have no intentions of leaving Texas and making wine in Napa or Portugal again, or anywhere.
No, I mean, especially now that kind of not that I couldn't, uproot. Although that sounds like a bad pun. But just not that I couldn't kind of leave or move the business, but when it's so site specific and agriculturally based, it just feels like you're starting a whole new business in a very different way. So, I think at this point, I mean, I've been doing it here as far as my own production for 11 years. We're actually in harvest time now. So, yeah, I don't have an intention at this point to go somewhere else and do winemaking.
Mm-hmm. So you've been doing your own brand now in Texas for 11 years. We've got the Growers Project Pickpool 2024 Blanc.
Yes.
I've bragged to Jill about Pickpool in the past. It's one of those, by most people's standards, obscure variety. And I know there's a little bit of it in California, like Sonoma. And know most of it comes out of France. You can buy Capset Pickpool pretty much anywhere in the world at this point. It's like a $10 bottle of wine, and it's fantastic. If you've never had it, I highly recommend trying it. This, on the other hand, is fantastic, and it's varietally correct, and I love this wine. And you said it was kind of like was this the wine that launched your own brand, or was it the rosé?
No, the rosé was my flagship. So Dandy Rosé was the first thing that I started making here in 2014. The next year, though, I was working hand in hand, doing some work with another winemaker, and doing some work for his winery, kind of consulting work. And he had found some fruit. His family was on the farming side, and then they opened a winery, so they were then kind of coming to that side. But a lot of growers were coming to them, and if they didn't have a buyer for their fruit, they would go to them and just say, hey, I've got this fruit, are you interested, or do you know someone who's interested?
Oh, wow.
And so he found this amazing quality Sangiovese that year, and he said, hey, do you want to do this together? So we started that as a collaborative project. It was really just kind of a side project. But it was really interesting because he had these connections to different growers out in West Texas, and we were finding really cool fruit. And so we started it with the Sangiovese, and then later on added another couple. And so the Pickpool, I loved seeing Pickpool here. It does really well, especially in West Texas. It just it likes it. It's hot, it's dry, it's a semi-arid area. It's not a whole lot different from its Mediterranean home in southern France. And yeah, it's bright. But that one, we did a lot of leaves contact on it, so you get a little more depth than, I think a lot of the ones from southern France, although super amazing, bright, laser sharp acids, great for things like oysters and things. This one, we tried to give it a little bit more depth, gave it a little bit more time on the leaves, but I think it shows, like you're saying, the variety pretty well.
It does, but also, like you're saying, it has far more depth than what you're going to typically find here for Picpoul from France. I mean, most high-end Picpouls don't make it to America.
Yeah.
Most of the time, they don't even make it out of France. When I was in college, we did a brief overview of Picpoul. It was like, one slide, 5 wines, like taste through this. And it was like, wow, this is really good. Like Semillon is another wine another variety that I would put in that kind of that category of something that doesn't get a lot of attention and a lot of love. But to see this not only in America, but out of Texas is, that immediately got me excited about your brand. And I was all in, ready to buy a bottle. And then you graciously sent us, wines, which we appreciate. Thank you so much.
Of course.
But this demonstrates something that is obscure, which younger wine drinkers are always seem to be looking for.
They're more adventurous, I think.
Yeah, and this is the label is cool. Like Jill, I know you're dying to dump it.
Well, I love the label. Okay, so I love 3 colors on a label.
Yeah.
Like the marketing in me is like it's balanced, it's clean, and you're saying it's called the Growers Project. Can you just revisit like why it's specifically called the Growers Project?
Yeah, so kind of the origin of that brand was a bit what I started with, which was that these growers were coming to my winemaking partner on this. And so we realized, kind of as a young region and one that is as large as Texas, any longer established region, you have well-recognized family names and vineyard names. And there's so much work. It'll be many generations in front of us that will continue to establish and get, those names better known. But I thought, well, on everything, the winemaker is always the spotlight, kind of like the chef in the restaurant. And yet, obviously, we can't do anything without our grower partners. And I thought this would be a really interesting opportunity to, find very specific sites and highlight the growers and, kind of put the spotlight more on them. And so we just give like a very brief little blurb on the back label about who the family is, where the vineyard is, but specifically naming the farming families and things, and really taking it away from, just the winemaker story. So, and I love branding work. All of the brands that I've done, I do all the branding work. I don't farm that out. And so it's, although, I work with designers, but I do like the art direction on it, and very much like, a large
it's your
part of that work.
Mine, and it's just them taking and being like, and refining this and making the file a little cleaner. That's typically,
But you're creating the direction for the label, and I love. As soon as I read the Growers Project, I immediately thought of Grower Champagne, which again, Joe will visit that sometime in the future. But as soon as you put that on the label, I knew what it was, because I think that is probably the coolest thing. And most people that know me, at club events or, wine events, know that I really don't like all the attention. I think I do the least important work, honestly. I mean, winemaking is very cool. I very much love it, but you can't make a great bottle of wine without really nice fruit. And, I don't grow the fruit. I walk the vines. I check the disease.
You manage
I manage,
fruit,
but I'm not the person that's working, that owns the land growing the vines.
It's deeper than just you.
Right. And so kind of what you're speaking to, I think is an amazing way to put it, is you're representing the growers here in Texas, or there in Texas. And I think that's a really cool concept, and kudos to you as a winemaker doing that.
Yeah, because I think where we get lost in the narrative in winemaking right now in the United States is the thing. It's like the winemaker, and everybody's like spotlight, spotlight, spotlight. And then we lose the connection to the actual storytelling that matters. Because everybody wants to say they have fine wine, and a lot of times their wine's just fine. And then that's the unpopular fringe topic. And then where they lose an opportunity to actually develop the connection with more people who are part of the process. So I
Yeah.
love that you're doing that with this label and this wine, and you're showcasing the families, and you're creating more of that storytelling that the consumers are actually going to want to connect with. And then you're going too far, as long as we're staying on the label real quick. Jake and I love a QR code.
Yeah.
And the fact that it links to your website, it makes it easier to buy more wine. It makes it easier to learn more about the wine.
There's a cool video of you, like, laughing and showing how much fun it is to be a winemaker, which I think is cool. But there's good information on there, and it's easy to buy. It's just, I mean, it's the convenience of buying your wine is easy.
Yes.
Good.
And then you make return purchases, like literally on the bottle, and it's marketing your next purchase. Yeah. So that's where a lot of wineries also fall short. Is they get to the point and they sold the bottle, like, okay, great, but establishing that long-term relationship is where so many people this makes me purchase after even the QR code makes it easy to buy into the idea and then return to the idea. But the concept of like, we're showcasing these growers, we're doing this cool thing, and it makes me want to buy the next thing that you're going to do. So I really appreciate that. I think we've gushed enough. Yeah, we've gushed enough. And honestly, we're now hooked on Pickpool, which is what you wanted to begin with.
That's great. I'm really glad you all are enjoying it, because that really is, I love showing that, Texas is a vast place. There are many different areas and many different styles and varieties we can work with here. And some of them better known, some of them lesser known. And I think Pickpool is, like you said, it's a little more obscure variety, and it's one that just does very well here. I love seeing, and it works with the climate here. We have long hot seasons, and you want fresh foods and things. And so to me, I love that wine for all that freshness. It's great with seafood. It's, it's a really fresh wine.
And honestly, obscure, yes, but it's not unapproachable to a new wine drinker like a Traminette.
Yeah.
That's an acquired, very unique niche taste. I'm sorry. Traminette, one more time.
Yeah, you're now running the hybrids. That's one that's lesser known in these areas.
The wine is clean. It's got beautiful fruit notes. It's got a long finish. Like, I'm still tasting it. And it's 30 seconds have passed since the last sip. You're clearly a good winemaker. And after tasting the other two wines, I would venture to say probably one of the great ones in Texas, at the very least. I don't know how you rank winemakers. They're all different. They all work with different things. But these are great examples of Texas wine.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. I'm glad. Well, and since you all said that you haven't had a lot of experience with Texas wine, I'm glad to have the opportunity to kind of introduce you to some that that hopefully intrigues you to seek out more.
I would say you're setting the standard pretty high.
We are. Yeah, you are.
Thank you.
We had our season wrap party yesterday, and we were talking to my family who happened to be there, and we were telling my sister who used to live in Texas, we're like, oh yeah, we're doing a podcast with a Texas winemaker, and she goes, well, if you're gonna go to Texas to taste wine, you're taking me with you. And I was like, whoa.
Whoa. Well, if you all come to Texas, we would absolutely love to have you, and love to just fill your days with some really cool visits anytime. So let us know.
Well, thank you. All right.
Yeah.
So
and bring your sister.
I will. We're moving on to Dandy Rosé, and I'm going to pause real quick because I'm gushing over the label again because. Okay, so we're in the country of Virginia, so I have this is break out your cowboy boots kind of label. I'm gonna wear pearls and my cowboy boots, and I'm going to drink this wine.
Yeah, nice.
But tell us a little bit about the Dandy Rosé.
Well, what's interesting too is Dandy was the first wine. That was my flagship wine. The designer that I worked with for that label is the same one, different from the last one that we'll taste, but the same one as the Grower Project. So obviously a range of different kind of art direction, and of course speaks to his talent. But that one, and here's, I think when first approaching that, specifically the label, I always say, I'm in Texas, but I don't lead with boots and spurs. It's just it's not who I am.
Of course.
I'm not even a Texan. I've lived here long enough that some people say I am. Other people are like, no. But anyway, but it does have kind of a different feel to it. And I want it to be fun and playful. Obviously, it's named Dandy. The wine itself, though, the reason that I started with that style of wine is because the longer I was living here, I'm from the Midwest originally. I don't care for the cold, though. I can take the heat all day long, but I left the cold behind. And so the longer I was living here in this very warm climate, the more I found myself, I love red wines, but it's more certain times of the year where I'm drinking more of them. And I find myself drinking a lot. I love French rosé and whites and sparkling and definitely reds too. If I'm going for the fuller, richer ones, it's generally going to be in a little bit cooler months.
Right.
So then as I started seeing what was happening in the industry here, in the wine industry, I realized that the same traditional varieties that make such beautiful rosés in Provence thrive here in a lot of different parts of the state. And I thought, oh my God, like we should be making loads of rosé, And so at that time, any winemaker that would listen to me, I was like, make more dry rosé, make more dry rosé. And then I decided when I started my own production, I started with that because I just think it goes with the climate. It's one of the most versatile styles you can have. It goes with really everything, whether it's a cocktail kind of wine on its own or pairing with foods. It's so versatile, and it's a traditional dry style. And I love all those. It's generally made from Morvad and Sanso. Certain vintages, I'll blend in if I have. It's always going to be traditional Southern French varieties. Everything that I do is 100% grown here in Texas from day one. I've never had a desire to bring in fruit from somewhere else. But just to clarify, because every once in a while you can find that sometimes. But always traditional French varieties. And on that one, a lot of wines I really want to show the very specific, difference in vintage and site. This one I do blend from different vineyards, and I'm trying to really go for, it's always going to show a vintage variation, as it should. Sure. But the blend changes a little bit, and I try to just keep a consistent style of those Southern French varieties in a dry. I always do a direct press, so these are picked early very specifically for this purpose of making. I want low alcohol. I want the brightness there, the natural freshness coming in with that fruit. And so, I don't have the tech sheet in front of me, but I do believe that one also has a little bit of Cunoise, which is another rather obscure variety.
Yep. But Cunoise. Yeah, it's part of the pit bull thing. Okay. So we'll work on it at some point. So I like this rosé. So most people know that I don't really care much for rosé because I make terrible rosés, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with it.
Better than we give it credit for.
So rosés are just not my strong point, and they're not traditionally a wine that I would gravitate to. Like I really prefer the medium body whites. I like light to medium red, something that's easier to drink. I only really do heavy reds when I'm eating. That's just my thing.
Yeah.
What I'm going to pull out of the cellar, is this rosé kind of splits the difference for me. It's got some nice strawberry characters. I know you've mentioned watermelon multiple times. This has definitely got more body than a rosé we would see here in Virginia, which I think Virginia tends to shoot for more of that Bandol rosé, that leaner, bright acidity.
Yeah, we always say, okay, so Virginia has figured out whites and does whites really well. And reds, we're still kind of figuring out. Blends typically perform better amongst consumers. Honestly, anytime we go out, we typically buy a blend. And then rosés, it's hit or miss in Virginia. And this is definitely delicious.
I would argue that Virginia should stop making rosé.
I know you argue this all the time.
Wow.
I have no problem. I mean, there are a few exceptions.
Listen, there is a clientele base that wants to see a pink, a rosé wine in Virginia. Right. When you're this close to DC, you have to have a rosé. Just it has to happen. Yeah. Your argument aside, and your passions aside, we're focusing on Texas.
But I would argue that you've made a really wonderful case for making some rosés and why Texas should continue to pursue rosé.
Yeah.
I think this is fantastic.
Yeah.
This is everything that I would want out of a rosé. when I initially tasted, I was like, okay, it's rosé. But now that I've tasted it again, and then I've continued to taste it, because wines have to open, they have to breathe.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying this more now
Yeah,
than an hour
fantastic.
ago. Like, seriously.
It's
It was
amazing.
good an hour ago. It's great now.
Yeah, and you said watermelon immediately.
Yeah,
And
it's still there.
And it's still there.
Yeah.
So you've hit the aromatics. The winemaking is clearly very tight. It's very clean.
It came out a really beautiful
color.
Yeah.
Good. Is that one, remind me, do you have the 2023 in front of you?
Yes.
Yeah. And so that's also one that I think a lot of people, I think most winemakers, if you talk to them, I think there's, the consumer market has become very kind of used to looking for that brand new vintage. And I love celebrating the spring with that young vintage. It's celebratory for the season and all of that. But most winemakers will tell you that their previous vintage, it's right about that point that it's really starting to hit a nice stride. As long as it's a wine of quality. I mean, as long as it's made with quality in mind, there's no reason that rosés can't really develop with time. And so I'm trying to kind of also move in a direction where we still release the young one that's been in take a few months, and it's it's super young, it's bright, it's like electric kind of acidity, but I really also think that there's a big spot for showing how rosés can develop, and not so far that they don't have any fruit tones anymore, because that will kind of happen, but where it still shows more than just simple fruit tones. And so I really like where sometimes with the young ones it'll be like watermelon bubblegum, which sure, I'll drink a glass of that. But these, I think, just show more depth. I think they're really food friendly. And so, yeah, I like showing that, I'm not releasing ones that are 5 years old, but just showing the one that's had just, a little bit of time to develop, and showing so that.
Honestly, I mean, I didn't know that you could have an older rosé and it be around here. They're like, get it out the door, get it off the floor.
Yeah,
like,
that's the winemaking down here. If we do rosés here in Virginia, we always tend to use Merlot or Cab Sauv, and occasionally Cab Franc.
Occasionally Cab Franc. It's a lot of Cab Franc.
And Chamberson. If you're pulling those varieties off so early enough to make a rosé, like a style like this, those wines are going to have the tannin to really hold up the color, which is why you see a lot of browned out rosés on the shelf in 2025 right now. I lament about this all the time, and I'm guilty of it too. I'm not special, but it's just being honest. You have to either dedicate vineyard to rosé and do it very intentionally, or you have to make a very small amount because of a bad year and you just want to get something made, and you do a tiny amount of rosé. Don't dedicate the entire acre of anything to just rosé unless you're doing it intentionally. And I have this conversation with winemakers here all the time. Like, if you've got to do it, you do it intentionally. And you've only done this intentionally.
You said this too in the Norton episode.
I did.
Where people just like let Norton run wild, and it's the same thing. It's like everything has to be done with intention.
Right. And and then the last thing that I want to comment on is that you launched a flagship wine, your flagship wine, as a rosé, and that's brave. That's brave.
Yeah, I would agree. I would think, or I think what made a difference as well is because I was consulting and I was building wine programs, and I was, in Austin, and at that time, buyers and the sommeliers in the city were not interested in what was, being made out in the hill country. So the main winemaking area here is about an hour, between an hour and an and a half west of Austin. And so at that time, the industry continues to grow, but there's been a lot of development between, just in the last 10, 11 years. So at that time, though, they didn't think there was much quality wine being made, and the people that were making quality wines out in the hill country weren't really they didn't really know how to approach the market or kind of connect with the right buyers. So at that time I saw those kind of gaps that really could be bridged, and how I could kind of play a role in that, and I thought it just really exciting. So I started doing that for other winemakers, but then when I made my own, I was selling entirely to people who knew me, and luckily, I had a trusted reputation, and so they weren't concerned about it being Texas. They're just like, "Oh, Rae made it. We're going to trust it," which was awesome.
Cool.
But it was also, I kind of had an advantage because I was already very deeply connected to the wine industry here in Austin that just trusted it. And then they were just like, "Oh, wow, this is cool. It's Texas." And they just knew that I was bringing, a traditional style, kind of one that, appealed to songs. And so I think if I was just, obviously I couldn't open a winery with just one wine, but,
Right.
If I was coming to it more from that side of things, it would have been even riskier. But I think I had kind of a little more creative freedom to do something where I knew that I could connect with the right people. Plus, that first vintage, I made one pallet of wine. So it was more than I could drink, but a lot less than, tiny commercial production. But then grew pretty rapidly after that.
Well, that's exciting to hear, and I know we have a few winemakers that listen, and they're always talking about starting their own brand and what wine, and it's always right now in Virginia. I hear a lot of like, I'm going to make a Chardonnay, I'm going to make a Chardonnay, I'm going to make a Chardonnay, and we can do Chardonnay, but can you make it exciting enough for people to want to try it?
The thing is that so many people in Virginia have figured out how to make a
Right.
Chardonnay that it's going to be so hard to go and then make a Chardonnay and be competitive in the industry.
But you picked a style of wine that is really well liked, and that because it's so well liked, it's very open to criticism rapidly.
Yeah.
And you did it, and you did it really well. We didn't taste the first vintage, but this is an older, more mature rosé that still drinks young and fresh, but also has more depth and complexity and flavor.
And this is such a great wine to like educate a younger consumer.
Yes.
To be like, you like rosé? All right, we're going to teach you something new, and it actually can be older, and it's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the industry, we shoot ourselves in the foot all the time.
We're going to go for the
I know, but like.
All right, so I'm pouring the wine for the people, the red, which when I first tasted this, what I was expecting was Merlot, because I know reds and Merlot, reds in Texas are Merlot. That's what I've been told. I've had one or two. This was not what I was expecting, and when we figured out what the blend was, I was blown away because you did Grenache, Mourvedre, and then Graciano.
Yeah, I think there's 5% of that's Graciano.
5%.
Just to give a little bit more tannic structure. But
and the reason I found the Graciano so interesting is because I work for Chrysalis Vineyards here, and I make the wine over at Chrysalis Vineyards, and we're the first planting of Graciano in the country. 25 years ago.
Oh, that's so cool.
Nobody knows Graciano, and we only have 25 vines. So I make a barrel's worth at best. So to see it on a label somewhere else and from America was like, I was automatically rooting for this wine.
Yeah, that's so cool. Nice. That's very cool. 25 years ago and the very first planting. That's really interesting.
Did these also come back as aromatic barbecue sticks? Okay. So a little history. Our owner actually brought, and now, we've gone beyond the statute of limitations.
Yeah.
With her getting in trouble. She brought Albarino and Graciano over as aromatic barbecue sticks through customs.
Oh, I love it. The amount of stories from different winemakers and things about like how they smuggle things through customs. Like, some of my favorite stories. I love it.
The wine industry is just smuggling wine to different locations.
Totally.
We're not doing that.
We're not doing that now, so it's fine.
Yeah. Agricultural customs. Who knew? Yeah.
I do have a question. So this label looks like you looking into a kaleidoscope of colors, which typically I always say 3 colors is key if you're building out a label. This is a little bit different. So the wine people, I feel like it's just a blend for the people. Is that kind of the artistic direction you were going for?
Yeah, I mean, I think, wine for the people, the ethos in that has always been that, I didn't grow up around wine. It's something that I think is made almost intentionally. I mean, it is a very deep and kind of endless subject, but I think it seems like a lot of times it's made very exclusive. people feel like they already have to know something about it in order to enjoy it. They feel like there's some secret language around it. And that's pretty specific to the U.S. I think when you're in, traditional winemaking regions, you really see, it's families and agriculture. You just see a very different kind of culture built around it. And so I just want people to feel more open to it. And so from the very first, before I was even making wine, I named the company Wine for the People, because I just wanted it to be where people feel like they have a way in, where it's like more like an invitation.
Right.
People to feel like, oh yeah, I'm the people. I just want it to be something where there's a way in. And so with this now, putting it on the actual, like turning it into a brand and putting it on a label, is obviously I want that to be communicated. And then the design direction really was about, it's everybody everywhere, we're all a part of it. And so it's this, kind of geometric patterns of all different shapes and sizes and colors. And it's, it is kind of in the conceptual part of it. I don't know that people would get that just by looking at it, but I mean, you
we all have our own intentions behind labels.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of this, showing this uniqueness of all of us, but we all have a part in it. And also this is the first one that I've built very specifically for retail. And so I do, it's a little louder than some of my typical designs, but I also want it to stand out. Exactly.
And it's modern enough that it meets the younger consumer.
Fantastic.
You might have, if you listened to these episodes before, I go to the grocery stores and I buy wine for the label. I go to bottle shops, buy wine for the label, and see if that translates to the quality of the wine, if it actually tastes as good as the wine label.
Well, what tells me, the color, the label colors would grab me, but the idea of wine for the people, that's a cool concept.
Well, that's huge.
That's for
it's
me.
Like this draws you in, and then this sells you.
It's very rebellious. It's very rock and roll, and I'm all about that. And then the doing the sleuth work and figuring out what the varieties are. It automatically wants me to. I feel like I want to taste this wine just because it's something completely outside of what I'm supposed to enjoy, what I'm being led and marketed to.
Yeah.
And it's beyond that.
Her labels draw you in and build a connection.
Right. And the QR code keeps coming back.
Yeah.
Which comes to you. I like the information you put on the back about what exactly it is. You did a really good paragraph about what it is.
And the pairings on the back. Because that just breaks down. Because everybody's like, all right, I've now found a wine. Okay, what does it pair with? And then they're like Googling it in the aisle. This just takes the guesswork out of it.
Yeah. And it's just, obviously, those are just a few suggestions, but it really is. I want people to, again, I just want it to be, the wine is not, the wine itself, it's not to be dumbed down just because it's supposed to be versatile and appealing to, a broad range of people. I do want them to be kind of crowd pleasers in that way, but still with depth and complexity. So that to me is absolutely necessary, that whether you're a wine professional or a wine novice, you're still going to enjoy the wine and see the, a kind of versatility in that. But then also on a label, if I'm buying a retail wine, I don't necessarily need it to have that, but I also know that in talking about this label development, somebody said, well, especially with, younger consumers, they kind of want to be told, like, okay, well, what do you do with this? Like, well, what do you put it with? And I thought, oh, that's great. Because when we make our tech sheets and things, we'll have, a few things on there, even though that's going to professionals. It's just a couple suggestions along with some tasting notes. And so I thought, I didn't want to go into like challenging language tasting notes, but I want to give an indication of what it is and then just a couple really easy suggestions. And so, if that's helpful for people, then they use it, and people don't need that. It's not like, I don't know, it still gives, it's not like dumbing it down where it's only for a particular crowd. And I work a lot with Rhone varieties. Rhone varieties are really the focus of my production. And so I love Grenache in Texas, a lot of different areas of the state. I work with it both in the Hill Country area as well as then out in West Texas. I think it's an amazing variety for this area of the world. And so I had some really nice Grenache that used for the large base of that blend. I believe that's 70%. I think it's 70% Grenache, and then another, I think 20 or 25 Mourvedre, and the last 5 of Graciano. But yeah, I think, those varieties, there is some Merlot here. I haven't seen I don't know, there is some Merlot here. I would say that there's a lot more like Mourvedre and Tempranillo, things like that. But there is actually the very first bottle, when I told you that first winery that I went to visit, the bottle that I left with was a Merlot. And it was amazing. It was really impressive. Yeah. And when I walked in and I thought, Merlot, why are people planting Merlot in Texas? And then I was like, oh, it's delicious. It was great.
I want to circle back to something you said, because you said wine for the people is to make it approachable and kind of a gateway for them to get attracted to wine. I think with a lot of younger consumers, they feel bad walking into wine situations because they're not as educated about wine, but they've also, I want younger wine consumers to not feel bad about that, because there's not as many settings where that's been needed as it would be in older generations. Like if you were, successful in business, you were taking your clients out to restaurants and you were kind of required to know a little bit more about wine to wine and dine your clients. And that was more part of the culture. And now we're in this digital culture where a lot of people work from home. And I mean, that's becoming increasingly less, but they're not in those experiences where it's required. And so they need to give themselves like a breath, honestly, and just try things.
Yeah. And creating space where there is that, where that feels okay to just try things and not feel like
and to not know. And it's okay to not know.
Exactly. When I used to do classes and things a long time ago, people would come in, it was like they were almost apologizing first. They'd say, oh, I've always wanted to learn about wine, but I don't know anything about wine. And I'm like, it's okay. Like, you don't need to. I mean, and I always say it's kind of like, it's like a train and you can get off at any stop. I mean, if you're just tasting something and you're like, oh, I like this. Great. That can be the end of it. It doesn't have to be made super complicated. Or you can certainly take it to the opposite end and turn it into your life's obsession like me. But it's, but you can kind of, make it what you want. It doesn't have to be one thing. You don't have to, watch the movie Somm and be like, oh my God, I need to learn all these things.
Yeah, exactly.
Not everybody needs to be those guys. Thank goodness.
Well, and I think that's where the industry shoots itself in the foot, is there's still so many people who kind of make you feel bad for not knowing. And then there's people ridiculous. Like yourself and Jake and I, where it's just like, it doesn't matter. Just buy wine you like. Try something new. Try everything until you find something you like. I mean, I will continually try a Traminette until I find one.
I'm sure you will. I think what we're all kind of commenting on is the fact that the wine industry, the wine started, in aristocracy. Only the rich, only the wealthy, only the highest of royalties could have it, and then the religious sects. Yeah. And then, but all of the wine that was being grown and made was done by the people. And
consumed by the people.
Well, not really. It was all given to the royalty and the aristocracy. And then over centuries, it's kind of worked this way to where it's being grown. But, in modern times, it was the wineries dictated what was good to the consumer. And then,
and they're still trying to do that.
They still do that. And then sommeliers were kind of also introduced to help the consumer learn and understand and appreciate wine. Mm-hmm. And that's not working anymore. And that's not a knock against sommeliers per se, because I will say that sommeliers have kind of become roadies and even rock stars, or like small Nashville, musicians.
The Black Song RVA.
I
love him.
Where they're kind of talking about wines and they're kind of introducing them to consumers. But I think what you're doing here, and what I appreciate, and maybe I'm just making it up and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you're a winemaker that's picked something and made it approachable for consumers, and you've said, like, here's a wine that is for you in these situations, and I'm explaining it to you in a way that you can either appreciate it for a really high-end wine or just enjoy it as an everyday wine, and it's going to go with these foods. You've made it very easy to appreciate and understand. The label's attractive.
It's a curated experience on the bottle. Like,
Yeah.
I know what I'm going to eat that night.
You've shortcutted everything.
Yeah.
It's not the winery, it's not the somm, it's just the cool label and a quality wine. And the price point is good.
Yeah.
It's a good price point for a high quality wine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, my hope always is to over deliver from, the price point. And definitely now with like the subscription service where people can, find something they enjoy and then be able to access it. And the more that they access it, just like, kind of with that model, you get, a lot more discounts and things. But I think I think that broadens its accessibility too, because I think that a lot of, all kinds of consumers, I wouldn't call myself a young consumer anymore, but I use subscription services a lot. And I think with things like wine, once you find something that's really appealing, like, oh, it just makes it easy. You don't have to go and find it every time or see that it's out, and then you get, kind of discounts, which makes it more appealing too. But I think that, there's not a whole lot of that going on in the wine. Now it's changing and people are trying that model out more. You see a lot of kind of alternative packaging and things go through that model with cans and things like that, which is cool. I love seeing all of it. I think that as as generations change, the industry is making some big shifts right now, and we need to be more flexible and more dynamic and find different ways to offer it to people, find different ways for people to access it, and make that, just like you're saying, the industry can sometimes kind of dictate what kinds of wines or things, and we can also stick with very traditional models that might not be the way that people are shopping for wine as much anymore. And I do put some things into stores, into retail, as well as I have some really limited wines that I only, mostly sell direct. But with these wines, I want them to be accessible, and we can certainly put them in some stores. But I think one of the most accessible things right now is that people can order it. They can order it online. They can kind of, package it the way they like and explore. And, they can explore then wines from a place that they probably don't know. I mean, it's still very much a region that's, some people, they're still Texans. They're like, oh, wow, there's maybe if they've heard of Texas wine, it was from 20 years ago. They're like, yeah, it's not that great. You're like, no, there's actually a lot of good wine being made. So, it's also exposing people to, I think people are really curious about different regions and different varieties and kind of seeing things that are not just in the super traditional model. And so I think that's a fun thing about it.
Well, you're doing a good job of appealing to, and this is always with respect, but the boomer generation is they're hitting their fixed incomes. They're not buying as much wine, and we're never really buying American wine outside of California, outside of Napa, and maybe some of them dabble in Oregon, but they're not buying Texas wine. They're not buying Idaho wine. They're not even buying Virginia wine, and you've kind of recognized that by continuing to make these styles. That could be appreciated by them, sure, but also like you've done more modern branding. I thank you for not putting capsules on your wine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Capsules they're just trash. They don't do anything for the wine. And if you wait tables, capsules suck.
I was saying the other day, like sommeliers hate capsules.
Oh, it's the worst because nobody wants to go up to a table and be like, and here you are, correct? It's just not. It's not the best. But yeah, I hear you.
So you've done a really good job of making these wines. They've got some traditional styles to them, but they're also very modern, and the labels are very modern. But you've kind of encompassed everything. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
And not afraid to just break down barriers.
But
you just be like, we're not doing it the same way everyone else is.
Right.
Yeah.
But you've done it in a place where nobody's expecting wine to come from, and that's kind of where I want to take the last bit of this.
Yeah, because Texas.
You're doing Texas, and we're not anybody here yet in Virginia, but maybe one day we will be. But I'm gonna walk away from this. I won't speak for you. I'm gonna walk away with this, telling people to go after Texas and explore Texas. And if you've known me, people have asked me like, where would you go make wine if you weren't in Virginia? I always say Texas.
Oh, really?
Because you were getting ready to go to North Carolina.
I was going to go back to North Carolina, but then, if I was going to pick a cool place in the world to go, it was Texas, because
That's cool.
it's not well known in the wine. And if you're going to impact,
it's a budding scene all the way around, because like the food scene is changing, it's becoming more fun. I remember my sister was like showing me all these different cool places she was going, and it's just all encompassing a new, younger experience.
But there's so much more, because there's no expectation right now of Texas, right?
Yeah.
So you can do things that are a little bit more
fringy,
obscure or fringy. And, you know.
Oh, I thought you said cringy.
No,
we do say that a lot.
No,
fringy. Okay, I like that better. That's better.
But this was great. This has been wonderful. Where do you see Texas going from here? I mean, besides up, what else is next?
Well, I hope up, but also, I do think, I mean, I think there's a lot of, I think Virginia has a really cool reputation for wine. I mean, it's, you know, it's a really amazing place. I've always been very intrigued with Virginia wine. I've had some, but not enough. I'd like to explore more. But I think it's a really cool place. As far as Texas, it really, I mean, it's such a vast area alone that is just, I mean, it's both incredibly exciting and incredibly daunting, because we'll be exploring this place as a wine region for so many generations in front of us. So that is very exciting. But what I think is also incredibly exciting is to see obviously we can't speed up an annual harvest for clear reasons, but what we can do is build education, and more people that go out from here and experience winemaking in other places, bring that back, you know, whether it's harvest or just going and visiting other regions. And it's just always getting that context of a world that's been making wine for, 10,000+ years, and then bringing that back and making sure we all remember, wherever we are, that nobody's reinventing wine. But we also have to be the best studiers of the ground underneath our feet, because not every place is the same. And so, like you were saying earlier, making sure that we're allowing ourselves to kind of write our own definition of who we are, and not trying to aim just for, a California palate or a, French palate or any of these other places that are better known, but learning what it is that this place makes. And this place being as broad as it is, that's a big task in front of us, but it's also incredibly exciting. So to me, as we're seeing, in the last, especially 10, 15 years, we're seeing the leaps of quality just being exponential, and it's really exciting. And with that, we have a lot more kind of organizing of the industry to really support, and it's always been a supportive industry, but I would say just that organizing, kind of branding ourselves as a region as a whole, and we have a lot more work to do as that, but we're really kind of grouping together, finding ways to, when people are coming in and doing these harvest reports from, say, Suckling or Decanter, we're all bringing in all kinds of other producers to say, like, anyone who's interested, like, participate in this, because this is giving the entire region focus in a way that is benefiting us all. And so it's not just everyone out for themselves. It really is trying to kind of, uplift the entire region, because it's ultimately, it's not really, everybody's doing their own thing. I think a lot of times people say, oh, isn't it competition? You're like, well, if you're in a city, or do you only want one restaurant? Everybody's doing their own thing, right? And so it's interesting that way. You want to see all the variety, and you see people that specialize in one style or another, and, all of it. So those things, I think, are making a huge difference in what we're seeing in these leaps of quality, and just kind of, I don't know, just, finding ourselves to be more established, and through that also naming and developing our own. We have had, I believe, 8 AVAs in the state for quite some time now, but are now seeing, I think we have 5 others in development right now, because the place is as large as it is. We really, and then specifically the Central Texas area, which is the Texas Hill Country AVA, is so incredibly varied. You can plant something 10 feet away from each other and you're going to get different kinds of expressions. And so with that kind of variation going on, it's really interesting to then see as we can develop and get to know the very specific things that make one area distinct from another, and how it, how the expression is there, how the the varieties and how things thrive there, and then be able to put that into a full report and application into applying for another viticultural area. So in time, I believe in the Texas Hill Country we'll have a good 20 AVAs just within that region, like sub AVAs. But then throughout the state, we'll have many, many more. So I love seeing that part of this development. That's really exciting. And just seeing the dedication for people to continue to just, the farming especially, because as you're saying, and it's so true, any great wine, any winemaker knows that the wine is made in the vineyard. We can't do anything in the cellar that, isn't without really high quality fruit. And so on all sides of that, the growing, of course, being the, kind of that foundational side, is that the quality and the dedication to seeing the entire life of that wine, not just getting good fruit, but knowing that then that relationship between the grower and that winemaker, they're in contact through the entire life of that wine to really see, like, okay, how can we get that better, and how do we make that work for everyone, and reworking contracts where everyone is winning. It can't just be, great, I'm going to, you have to be able to have everyone winning. It can't only look like all the margins are on one side of it. So I think that all of that is really where we're going to, why we're seeing these big leaps in quality and things, but also where we will continue to develop more quickly than just what, an annual harvest allows us.
Well, I think and I'll say it, I've made wine in Virginia, North Carolina, and the state of Georgia. I will say that your Texas and your explanation now has just proven that you're far more ahead of those three states, if not all of the East Coast, in the regards that you're clearly saying that your industry is discussing with the growers, with the winemakers, and with the retailers, and you're collaborating and you're working together. Whereas here in
feels like we're always fighting each other.
Right. In Virginia, we don't want everybody in Virginia there's two parties in Virginia. Either you're sourcing from a great site with a great grower and you're promoting that concept, or you're 100% estate grown. There is no in between where you're like, oh, I'm working with this grower to grow organically, or I'm growing this Chardonnay on this particular trellis system. I'm pushing fruit over acid. I'm pushing, quality over tonnage. Like there's none of that really happening here in Virginia publicly. We don't want it discussed. Whereas what you're describing is this collaboration. It's open. It's like you're acknowledging. I mean, you're doing that with the growers, Picpoul Blanc. You're even with We the People. That very much what you just said encompasses that brand. That's the entire thing that was running through my mind was, you're making this fantastic red wine with these fairly unique varieties in a blend that is very approachable with a cool label, and you're selling this concept, you're promoting this concept of collaboration, and not for the aristocracy of consumers, but for the people that are enjoying these in real life settings.
Yeah. Well, good. I'm very glad that comes across, because that very much is the goal, especially those brands are, that's the goal in mind. And it really, also with that in mind, especially, in any of the brands that I do here, I really, I said earlier, I don't lead with boots and spurs. That's not me, but it's also not my choice in branding, not because of this, but I would say that the other thing is that I want to get it in people's glass before they have a chance to be like, oh, it's Texas wine, like that's weird, or it's not going to be good or something, and so I think clearly anything that you look at, I'm very transparent. I want people to know the story of that wine and where it came from. That sense of place is everything. And yet I also want people to give it a chance first. and then be like, oh wow, Texas, this is interesting. Let me, look more into it because they're drinking something that they're enjoying, And so that's also the hope, is to think that not everything in Texas is one thing. We're a
Right.
very diverse state with all kinds of different things going on. And so not everything is going to have, a longhorn on the label, nor does it
Right.
need to. And if it does, great, but it's not everything, right?
Right.
So
It's not only, that's not the only thing
yeah,
Texas does.
yeah,
Well,
exactly.
so what is, and before we finally wrap this up, because I know we're taking up a lot of your time and you're in the middle of harvest. Luckily for me, it's just a Sunday. We haven't picked yet.
Yeah.
So what do you got in the wings? What are you working on? What's the experiment this year? What's the next big thing that
you can talk about?
that you can allude
Yeah,
to?
highly classified.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm always exploring sparkling wines. I really love making sparkling wines. There is a counterpart to Dandy Rosé that's called Dandy Bubbles, and it's a sparkling rosé. And then I make a couple of others, but I enjoy drinking sparkling wines, but I also really enjoy the process on the winemaking side. So I'm always kind of exploring that and finding, I don't make a lot of them, like case counts, but I make, a few different ones, and I'll just find very specific kind of small lots of something very unique that I can do in that way. And then the other thing is that I spend a good amount of time seeking out older plantings here, which, for a long time, I didn't even know there really were older plantings here. And I found, some years ago, I found a vineyard that was planted in 1972. And I
Wow.
started getting the Chenin Blanc from there, and I made a sparkling Chenin Blanc. And now I also get a Sauvignon Blanc from there, which these were varieties that, although I love, I never thought I'd be working with them in this part of the world. But what I love and what's so intriguing about older plantings is that the way that they adapt to their environment gives you very different results and expressions. And they also are incredibly resilient. So these vines in places that through some crazy seasons with some really wild weather, still have been, they've just hung out through it.
Wow.
They are more resilient than most of the younger plantings. And they continue to, even in some kind of, going through periods of times where they're maybe not farmed at the, very well, and they still just put out fruit that's of incredible quality. And so, and of course, over time, they're also producing less fruit, which
Right.
is also a good thing if it's not getting the, now it's actually, changed ownership a few years ago and is now being farmed at a very high level. But
Wow.
it went through some years where it was really kind of neglected, and it was just some of the most interesting fruit I had ever gotten to work with. So I really love kind of seeking out some of those. We've worked now with one that's planted in the 80s, a couple that were planted in the 90s, and just really finding some things that have some of those, just the age on those vines just change your character and kind of how they're going to express. But so those are kind of some focuses of mine.
That's
I'm always
awesome.
exploring.
Yeah, I think
But
that's really cool. Nobody would think that Texas has, I mean, there's old vineyards in every state.
Yes.
But when
yeah,
we're talking about, on a wine podcast, we're talking about wines. We're talking about wines from a unique place in the country. Nobody's thinking like a new upcoming region. They're thinking 20
Texas,
years,
the new
maybe.
frontier.
Yeah,
yeah,
they're not thinking the 70s.
Yeah.
So that's really exciting. And, I'm a huge fan of Chenin Blanc. I mean, we have Chenin Blanc growing down from a producer down the street. What, 20 minutes? Murray's what, 20?
Oh, yeah.
20, 30 minutes?
Yeah, 25 minutes.
He's got Chenin Blanc planted at the bottom of a mountain. Most people haven't even heard of him or
yeah,
Chenin Blanc. And it's
Get the chance.
fantastic.
He's wonderful. Artero.
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
Nice.
how do I know we can scan the QR code, we can visit, and we'll share and promote,
Yeah.
because the wines are fantastic.
Yeah.
We didn't gush enough about the wine for the people, but that is a fantastic light to, I'd say medium body, light to medium body red, which is exactly what I look for. Good tannin. Where else can they buy your wine? Is there any way to buy your wine on a store shelf here in Virginia?
In Virginia, not at this point. from Virginia, the easiest way to get it would be through just online, which is wineforthepeople.com. And then here in Texas, you can find it at Whole Foods. And that's mainly the larger retailer, and then some more small independent retail. But in time, we are looking to expand to some other states on retail shelves. But for now, the best way to get it is through the subscription, and it makes it really easy because, like I said, you can get it once a month, once every 3 months, and you'll get discounts and things. And so you can do all three as a mixed pack, or if you just find one that you really love, you can get just that or any combination between. So that's the easiest, and it's wineforthepeople.com, just like it sounds.
Awesome. And then, what happens when you change vintages? Do you do like a special run on old vintages and new vintages? Do we just get the new vintage and we get excited and hyped about it? What's your take on that transition?
Yeah, again, there will always be vintage variation, but on those wines, I am going for, a little more consistency. But yeah, it'll roll into the next vintage. We will do some overlap where we'll be able to kind of see them next to each other.
Cool.
And we'll certainly, especially on a new vintage, we'll offer some kind of an incentive to, get it so you can then know that you're going to like that before you commit to more of it. But yeah, it's that part is the style and everything will be kept the same. No wine is the same, and I'm very against the idea of trying to make it the same because we don't use additives and things. We're looking at making very clean wines. We're not making things, additives would make it a lot easier to make the same kind of wine all the time, and that's not the goal. But I do want people to know what they're, what to expect. And so the style will generally be, keeping in those same lines. But yeah, there will be some variation too.
I like that you're working to show consumers too, when the Dandy changes, you can kind of
expect a change,
but the same style. And there's notification, there's communication about it, and even an opportunity to do a comparison. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah. That's awesome because a lot of people because they're so conditioned to buy at grocery stores. I think especially current generation, they're just it's supposed to taste the exact same. No.
Yeah,
it should be.
It should.
Yeah,
the same.
Exactly. Yeah.
And if it does,
where we'll do
horribly wrong.
Yeah, exactly. What's in that wine? How can you make it exactly the same? Because
Exactly.
really, at that point, it's kind of mass produced, and there's just a very different. Without diving into that, that's a whole nother podcast. But
maybe.
But yeah, I think looking at that, I think there's just we'll have video content and things that really bring you into that process too. Where we're not just diving so deep that it's a whole different, like nerd fest, but it's also where you can understand them. Yeah, I also like doing that. I could definitely do my own nerd fest, thing, but just that it's oh yeah, here's what happens when it's, here's why it is different, and there's a time capsule of growing season in this place. And so, this year we got riper, rounder flavors, and last year we had, whereas a little bit cooler temperatures, and so we're still working with the same varieties. You're going to get the same style, but here's the little difference, and so I think talking about it and kind of, like you said, with communication, you can make it interesting rather than it being something where it's more jarring maybe. Because again, it's not going to be a whole different thing, but you'll have that variation just because that's what the weather gave us, Mother Nature.
Wow, it's exciting. I'm a fan.
Yeah, I am too. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We enjoyed going through all of your wines and chatting through your branding, chatting through your story, and this was great.
Fantastic.
I'm
a huge fan of this wine.
I know. It's time to go.
Time to do it.
Time to go. Well, you let me know. We would absolutely love to host you. It was lovely to meet both of you. I totally enjoyed talking to you, and thank you for the opportunity. I really, I love what I do, and I think it's, great to expose people to, what's happening here in Texas, and thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Well, this is Wine Fringe, and I'm Jill Smedley.
I'm Jake Loninger.
And we have one more episode in store for our lovely fans and followers, and then we are out for season 1.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Always on a high note.